Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this session, we're going to check out iZotope Neutron 3 Sculptor. So if you're new to my channel and new to my videos, if you like what you see, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos as they come out. So I've done a couple of videos already on iZotope Neutron 3 trying to cover some of the new features, and one of the other big parts of Neutron 3 that come out, other than what I've already talked about from a GUI and a Mix Assistant, etc., is the Sculptor plugin. So if we go by what the manual states, Sculptor is a spectral shaping tool that is supposed to add clarity and polish to your tracks as it does what it does. So primarily it is a multi-band compressor, but instead of having your standard 4 bands or however many bands you get in your multi-band compressor, it has up to 32, and you don't actually adjust them yourself, which is good because I'd hate to be adjusting 32 bands of compression, but it's supposed to do it on the fly itself using some decision making based on the shape that you want the track to be sculpted to, which you select by the instrument type or the track function or however, or even what you want to get out of it. And you pick a range and the amount you want applied and how fast or slow it does it and things like that. But it's quite a simple tool to actually use, but it can obviously change the sound of your tracks quite drastically or very subtly depending on how you want to use it. So you would have already seen Sculptor appear if you watched my second part of the Mix Assistant video where I ran Track Assistant, because it added it by default to the start of every instance of Neutron 3 when you run Track Assistant. And I guess what it's doing in that case is it's trying to determine what the track is, what the sound of the instrument is, and it starts to do sculpting before it then applies EQ, compression, and whatever else. So while you would have seen it in that regard, I didn't really do much with it. So let's just get into it now and check out actually how it works and what results we get from it. So Sculptor in Neutron 3 is one of the new additions as a new module. And this is obviously not just a new skin or look or layout. This is actually a new module. And the Track Assistant function actually uses Sculptor to its advantage as well. So I've got a song here and we're going to try out Sculptor on a few tracks, but the essence of Sculptor is that it is it's supposed to be like a dynamic multi-band compressor, but instead of using just 4 bands that you have access to, it uses up to 32. So when I have a look at this and look at the manual, it looks very similar to a plugin that I have and have used before called Oak Sound Soothe, and it's closely resembling the actual iZotope Ozone 8 spectral shaper, just not exactly the same. It's more in line with the Soothe plugin. So which one sounds better would be a good test, but let's just run through this for a start. So you can see here, it's like every other module in Neutron 3 that you can add it. You've got some preset modules, you can move it around, and you can actually adjust the mix as well and turn it on and off. When you first start it up, it asks you to select a target to begin shaping your audio. So in this regards here, I've got it on a lead guitar at the moment, so we can go through and work out what we want to set this to, and we have all of these options here. So we can pick anything we like. So, if we had vocals, we'd pick that. In this regard here, we've got guitar, and I'm going to pick a distorted guitar just for the sake of it, okay? Now we have various settings here, and what we have is these controls here are for the target range. So the light colored here is where we are going to target our sculpting as such. And you can make it narrow or wide if you want to, target some really specific spot. You can do that. And from there, you can also adjust the amount. So this adjusts the amount of processing to apply. So obviously 100 is a lot more than less amount. We could adjust the tone. So I guess make it brighter or darker. I guess we'll find out in a minute. And the speed, which the manual says adjust the ballistics of the applied compression. So how fast the compression gets applied. And we can even solo our effect to see or hear what we're doing. So in regards to this, if we just open it up, and you might like to start off with a preset to get this going here. You've got a few here, but as I said, you can also use Track Assistant to guide in what it thinks. But let's run through it manually, and we'll try it on a few plugins and then see where we go from here. So it's very simple sort of controls. So if we just solo a lead guitar, so we bypass the plugin. This is what our lead guitar sounds like now. Okay, so if we turn on Sculptor, we might want to see our waveform here. And if we wanted to target the whole spectrum. So what we're seeing in the graph is the gray area is the in and output of the audio source. And then this brown area here is what is actually doing to our audio signal. So as you pull it up, you can see that it seems to be boosting the bass element here for a period of time. It's cutting a little bit of this, probably sort of a harsh nasally effect here between 1 and 2K. And it's cutting off, dipping quite a bit of our, I guess, brittleness at about 13K. So if we go 100%, you can hear how dull that is. So it's obviously very extreme setting there. If we adjust our tone. So our tone's boosting top end as well as other ends, so it's a bit of a... Yet it sounds brighter when I set it that way. You know, it says it's cutting there. And then we have our speed control. So this should adjust how fast or slow it responds to movement. So interestingly enough, the manual doesn't really state which direction is which. So let's just target something a little bit more narrower. So let's say we have a problem with our top end here being a bit brittle. So we have it in solo, you can hear what it is listening to. So having the speed down at 0 seems to be more about how fast. So 0 seems to be faster. I see it moving. Keeps adjusting a bit more. If I go up to 100, it seems to move less. Tone seems to be darker if I go higher, brighter if I go lower, but it's not as 100% clear cut as that. And as I said, you can mix in portions of it as well. So you could use this to de-ess vocals if you wanted to really target a specific spot where the S's are coming through, that sort of thing. But generally you would set it to a range that's a reasonable sort of spot. So if we use, for instance, let's use Track Assistant on this and let's see what it actually does. I'm going to actually tell it what type of instrument it is. And I'm going to turn all the other modules off because we only want to look at Sculptor here. So it's set the full range. It hasn't really changed any settings at all. So it's sort of thickened it up a little bit on the low end, dulled it down on the top. Not sure if that's actually what we want out of this for a lead guitar, but let's try different instruments. So let's jump on over to, say, a distorted rhythm guitar. Let's remove that. Again, we're going to start off with Track Assistant this time. And it's definitely a distorted guitar this time. It's not a lead. Okay, now we turn off the rest of the plugins. And again, it hasn't done any settings. Okay, let's go with auto detect this time. I want to see. So it hasn't made any changes whatsoever to this, but it believes it's detected it as an instrument bus, which we know it's not. So if we just play with it manually here, so let's do some examples here. Let's say, for instance, with this track, our low end can be a little bit muddy at times. So before, so let's have a look at a preset. So let's say we want to remove mud. All right. Okay, so if we want to remove mud, it's set a range here. Set it to add fullness for some reason. And 100% speed, 100%. So it's targeting this area. So it should be adjusting all these little micro moves, whereas a multi-band compressor, you're going to pull down this entire range in one shot if you set that as a band. In this regard here, just because we set the range, there still should be up to 32 potential compressors that could run in here, and as you can see, all these tiny little micro moves. So it keeps adjusting, pulling down little peaks, so it's a lot more accurate than a standard multi-band compressor. But it can have an impact where it significantly changes the sound of your actual instrument. Let's try something a little bit more obvious here. All right, we're going to go for a kick. And again, we're going to do track assistant on this. I'm going to see if it detects it. So it's decided to go for an all-purpose add punch as opposed to, say, deliberately picking a kick. Not sure if that actually changes the sound of it. We can test that out, but let's turn off the other modules again. And again, really hasn't done any settings whatsoever. It's setting everything to default. I thought it might have actually done something and detected frequency ranges that it wants to target, but it doesn't seem to does that at all. It sets this instrument type, instrument target curve, but other than that, so changing the target curve doesn't really give you much indication in the manual. All that they state is that they have designed a variety of target curves to specifically address different instrument types. Each target curve represents an idealized version of that instrument's spectral characteristics. So I can only assume from that they're doing some special stuff in the background that is going to adjust how this sculptor works based on this target curve and then your setting. So I guess in this regard, you can look at the entire region, and based on this target curve, it will respond differently. So in this regard here, what it looks like it's doing to me is actually boosting when the kick is not there, and as soon as the kick's there, it drops down. So it doesn't really look like it would be doing much at all. Now I'll switch between this and kick, and we'll see if it responds differently. Okay, totally different sound. So we're basically now taking out all of the high end of it and just concentrating on the low end. So we're getting rid of all of this middle part here and a lot of the top end as well. So there's obviously a significant difference with just changing this target curve. So that's fundamentally one of the biggest components to adjust. All right, so let's target another one here. We'll do 2 more examples. I'll just try a bass guitar, and then we'll do one on the actual main output. So considering that Track Assistant really doesn't do much in regards to this, I'm just going to actually set this automatically. So I'm assuming we have it set to 0, which should be doing nothing. So it's smoothing it out, removing a bit of this mud here in the middle, keeping the low end up, and taking a little bit of the top end attack out. So it depends what sound you like. We could try a different bass. So sub bass, we remove all of the top end and really concentrate on that low end. So you'll see with the spectral form there, that with it set to 0, they're together. We go up. You can see there's a faint grey line there. So that faint one there is supposed to be dark grey. That's the input, and the light grey, which is in front, is the output. So that's processed. So you can see that it's a lot lower in certain spots because that's what it's pulling down and adjusting there. And in the case of the low end here, it's actually boosting the low end because we're asking for a bass. And if you were to switch over to sub bass, you'll see it's boosting the really low end there and cutting all of this out. So we're just getting the sub. That's with it set up full. So it definitely can do what it says, which is sculpt. You can use it to sculpt your tracks to a desired shape or curve, as they're saying. Now, if we put a version on the main output here, and because I'm running the advanced version, I can just load up the individual module by itself, which is another advantage, I guess, with the advanced version of Neutron, is that you can load individual ones. So if we say instrument bus, keep in mind this is not mixed, so it's not going to sound the greatest. There. And if we load a preset here, we might want to master bus enhancer. Sets a slow speed, 50, not full, and adds fullness. So you can see what it's doing. Adding middle low end, cutting some mids, adding some top end. Bus balancer, pretty much the same. So remove boxiness here. This is an example of selecting a range. So it's picked a range between 300 Hertz, 700 Hertz, which is sort of the area that we refer to as getting a boxy sound. And it's really pushing hard on this, and it's set it to add fullness. So I'm not exactly sure why it's set that target curve or what the advantage of that is, but it's doing a really big pull down in that spot. You can hear this is the range. Sort of has that boxy sound. That's why everybody refers to it as that. And we're pulling a lot out. You could obviously blend that to taste or target less or more. So there you go. There is Sculptor from iZotope Neutron 3. Let me know what you thought of it in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Obviously, it's very simple to use, nice layout, nothing too complicated, can drastically change your instrument tracks if so choose, or can be quite subtle, and can control certain aspects depending on what you want to get out of it. You want to control harshness, you can do that. You want to add some punch, whatever, it can do that. And the ability that it can adjust on the fly as it's going based on the frequency spikes, etc., and do it with up to 32 bands of compression is a nice feature. Now, as I mentioned in the video already, I already own Oak Sound Soothe, so it's sort of like, to me, they're pretty much the same. I mean, I don't know if they give the same results, but the concept is the same. So it's not really such a great selling point for me to want to upgrade just to get that Sculptor feature, because I already have Soothe. So it sort of puts me on the fence of whether to upgrade or not, because if they're both as good as each other, then I'm paying twice for the same feature. So it depends what you want. Obviously, this one is included in Neutron 3 and is a part of the track assistant process. So from a workflow point of view, it may be more beneficial than running a separate plugin altogether, but it depends how you work and what you want to get out of it. Obviously, if you don't already own another plugin like Soothe to do this, then this may be a great plugin for you and something you really want. It's definitely something that is being developed more by lots of people at the moment. It seems to be the flavor at the moment of plugins to create, is these automatic sculpting, soothing tools, whatever they are, whatever you want to call them, because there seems to be more and more popping up every day, and this is iZotope's version of it. So let me know what you think of the feature and whether you think it's a great added bonus to the plugin suite of Neutron 3. If you liked the video, then click the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell to be notified of all my future videos as they come out. Hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.